So I hear that you want to make the most out of your HEIZOU. We're going to go over all of it. We're going to go over the builds, stuff you're going to need for him, everything. There are time codes in the description, so make sure to choose the right sections that work best for you and enjoy the video. Before I get into builds and weapons, there's one thing I really do want to point out, and it's his normal attack. Let it be known, he is the first Catalyst user to not have a 50 stamina cost for his charge attack. It is only 25, which is quite huge. Now you can go ahead and play him charge attack, however I enjoy just a normal attack because of course I'm getting way more hits and a lot more triggering with reactions and whatnot. But now to get into what roles you potentially want to play him as if you're going with DPS, sub DPS, or support, all can be done easily, and I'm going to tell you every which way you can do so. In my opinion, I believe the Solar Pearl is just his best no matter what, if it's DPS or sub DPS, because with Lost Prayer, if you're switching out a ton, which you probably are to continue keeping elements on the field as he is an Animo Catalyst, you are going to be losing out on the full set bonus. But this is convenient. Not so convenient for those who are free to play, but if you do have this weapon, this is absolutely his best without it being a 5-star weapon that you have to pull. Now, obviously if you don't have Solar Pearl, the Widsith is a great other option for free to play, especially if you get the Elemental Mastery buff. And if you're at Refinement rank 5, you're going to be doing the absolute most. As for the next really nice one is Mappa Mare. Elemental Mastery is going to be incredibly important for him, and I would say this is probably his better 4-star if it isn't Solar Pearl. If you're just going sub DPS, I think this is going to be incredible. It's a higher base attack than Solar Pearl and Widsith, and it's of course giving you a ton of elemental stuff, and he's an Animo Catalyst, so like all things are good here. Then there is Sacrificial Fragments, which is good, and it is going to grant you with a lot of Elemental Mastery. The passive is alright, but it's not like his cooldown is super long, so I don't necessarily recommend it, but if it is all you have, then this is a very good option still. Now there's also the option of Dodoko Tails, but it's not very likely that a lot of you do have this weapon, but if you do, another great alternative. And just a side note, Memory of Dust. I mean, look at this, 100%. I do want to make it clear that Mappa Mare is good for literally every single role I feel like he can do. I'm personally going DPS, therefore I am using Solar Pearl because I do want it to be on the field as long as possible, but that's just my personal preference, and you go with what yours is. Now as for artifacts, I don't want to make this too complicated, so we're just going to keep this as simple as we possibly can. I'm doing a Viridescent Veneraire with an attack bonus, which can be Gladiator or Echoes of an Offering, or however you say this. And now there is Wanderers, which you can do it for if you are just really into the charge attack, which again I'm really not, but if that's just what you want to do, this will be an amazing set for you. But back to the set that I'm mostly at, I feel like just the 2-piece Animo, the 2-piece attack is great, given that he seems to have to be on the field for quite a bit. For sub DPS and support, I think the 4-piece Viridescent Veneraire is probably going to be the best for you, as it's going to obviously decrease the resistance for whatever kind of element you're swirling for your actual DPS. Though 4-piece can be used for DPS if you so please, but attack is always nice. As for stats, it's not like he scales off anything, so you're just gonna treat this as like any other DPS that you do have. The Sands, I'm running attack. For the Goblet, I'm running Animo damage bonus, and for the Circlet, I'm running a crit rate or crit damage. In my case, it's crit damage. And you do want to try and get as much Elemental Mastery as you possibly can with all these artifacts. If not, that's also fine, but I mean, again, Animo is very OP. You want to make sure that you're getting as much Elemental Mastery as possible. I know I could have way more, and you absolutely can run an Elemental Mastery Sands or wherever else you really need it, but I'm trying to keep it as, you know, evened out as possible, and luckily for me, I do have a character that I'm going to be pairing with him that does use Elegy, so I'm going to be able to get that Elemental Mastery that I do lose. And we will get, you know, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but we will be talking about team comps to do with him. Now for anybody that's pulling for Constellations, this part is for you. Overall, it's a lot of just regeneration a lot quicker. C0 is going to be very good. You don't absolutely need to go for Constellations, but if you are, you're looking at a little bit more utility and a little bit quicker reactions and a little bit quicker building up stacks and reactions and stuff like that. For C1, attack speed is very OP in this case, and it gives him 1 stack for his skill, which can take take a while to build up, but then again, if you've unlocked his passive at level 70, he will gain a stack every single time he makes a swirl reaction, which is going to be very often. This can be triggered every 0.1 second. So it's not an absolute thing you need to pull for, but if you do, you can go on ahead. C2 just increases his burst duration and overall a little bit more crowd control. C4, which is good. I don't really see a complete point in it because his burst is already so incredibly low. It's already an energy cost 40 burst with such a low cooldown, but this will definitely regenerate a ton of energy for your team in general if you're going for that route. Now, if there's one thing I might want, it's probably his C6, because I feel like a lot of us can relate. We all have a problem with trying to get crit rate for our characters, and though I have quite a bit of crit rate, I feel like it's still not enough. So getting this would be incredibly helpful, but again, it's not completely necessary. His constellations don't seem like something you really need, but then again, is anyone's constellation really something that you absolutely need? Sometimes, but in this case, it seems very versatile and can go one way or the other. As for talent priority, I would recommend his skill. It all comes down to what role you want to play with him. Me personally, I'm gonna be going with 999 because I really like him, but I think it's best to prioritize his skill, and here's why. This skill is going to fill up stacks so quickly if you've especially unlocked the passive for it and also one of his constellations. But overall, the cooldown is low on it, and it provides a buff for your team all the time. It gives elemental mastery for 10 seconds, thus the cooldown is 10 seconds. So you have 0 downtime with this elemental mastery buff. To keep this as versatile as possible, I would say his burst could be second or first, all depending on what artifacts and weapon you have equipped on him. This burst does deal a lot of damage. And regarding normal attacks, if you're not playing him DPS, there's really no point in leveling this unless if you are having a hard time gaining stacks for his skill. And if you're having this issue, it would probably be the best to level his normal attack a little bit so that you're not missing out on a ton of damage just by having him being on the field to gain the buff. But this is in fact all up to you based on whatever role that you decide to play. All are good, but definitely prioritize the skill. Now, as for team comps for HEIZOU, the team I'm personally using is fit best for HEIZOU DPS. This will obviously give me a bunch of elemental reactions, which is exactly what we want. This comp will at least give me one elemental reaction, which is what I want, which is the swirl to activate his passive and overall make him do more damage output in the end. I know not everybody has Yelan, but I'm really running her for the weapon aspect of her, which I'm using Elegy, which can give me a lot of elemental mastery and buff my attack without her even being on the field. Bennett's here for obvious reasons to just buff period, and Yunjin's here because again I am using him DPS and I want his normal attack to be doing very good. Now, as for other team comps that are mostly free to play, but also if you have gotten lucky and have some of these 5 stars, Xingqiu is a great alternative to Yelan, of course. Beidou is also another great one to have off-field Electro going on. Raiden Shogun if you do happen to have them. Now, a lot of people do call Catalyst to be very squishy, so what you can do to fix this is bring a heal character, whether that be Zhongli or Noelle or whoever else you have build, Diona, which would be very extremely helpful if you have her at C6, but double Geo Resonance is really going to take you a long way, because the more you hit opponents, the more damage you're going to do. Albedo's another great one, of course, if you have this character, but as for mostly 4 stars, running Fischl, Xiangling, Xingqiu, Rosaria, Toma, anybody who has an off-field output is incredibly good for him. Even Lisa, if you ever built. The point is to make as many reactions as you possibly can, but also just maintaining the fact that you can like upkeep that and not have it be too confusing. You can easily just run one character like I'm doing, where they just will do the off-field swirl for me, and I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to keep reactivating stuff if I was to run Xiangling, Diona, Xingqiu, all those people at the same time as HEIZOU. But if you're up for the challenge, it's well worth it because you will be doing so much damage and it will be so nice. And that just about does it for this guide. Let me know what you're going to end up doing and also what you agreed with and perhaps what you didn't agree with. Let me know all those things and make sure to subscribe for more future guides.